Ion moved into the neighborhood on a bright morning. The sky was clear and the air felt fresh. He drove his small truck slowly into the driveway and looked around with a calm smile. He had chosen this place because it was quiet and peaceful. He wanted a home where he could rest after long days at work. He enjoyed silence, clean spaces, and simple routines. He liked waking early, keeping his yard neat, and drinking tea before starting his day. Across the street stood a woman named Mira. She was the head of the local HOA. She felt that every house on the street needed to look exactly as she wanted. She checked every yard and every wall. She looked for even the smallest mistake. She believed this made the neighborhood perfect. Many people found her tiring, but they stayed silent because they did not want trouble. When Ian stepped out of his truck and stretched his arms, Mira was watching from behind her living room window. She folded her arms and studied him. She liked to judge fast. She noticed right away that Ian did not look nervous. Most new people looked unsure when she stared at them, but Ian looked calm. This surprised her and made her feel uneasy. Ian walked around his house and checked the fence. The paint looked fresh and the grass in the yard was healthy. He felt happy with his new home. He opened his front door and carried boxes inside. He worked slowly and peacefully. Myra continued to watch. She noticed he had his own style of arranging things. She wanted people to follow her rules, not their own ideas. She already felt annoyed, even though Ion had done nothing wrong. During the afternoon, Ion finished arranging his belongings. He placed his books on a shelf, set a small plant near the window, and put his uniform inside the closet. Ion worked as a police officer, but he told very few people about it. He preferred a quiet life outside his duty and did not want attention. Later, when the sun began to set, Ion stepped outside to water the plants near his porch. His boots were still on from work. Mira noticed the uniform as soon as he walked into the yard. She stared at him with wide eyes. Instead of feeling safe, she felt threatened. She thought an officer on her street meant she could lose control. She believed the rules of the street were her job alone. She did not want anyone who might question her power. She stepped outside and walked toward Ion with a stiff smile. Ion greeted her politely, but she only nodded and said she hoped he would follow all the HOA rules. She spoke in a sharp tone as if giving a warning. Ion thanked her and said he always respected rules. Myra did not smile. She turned and walked back to her home. Ion watched her go and wondered why she seemed tense. He did not think much about it. He finished watering the plant and returned inside. He made tea and sat on his couch. He loved quiet evenings and was grateful for the peaceful sound of the wind outside. But Myra was not peaceful at all. She stayed awake that night thinking about Ion. She believed he might challenge her authority. She wanted to control everything about the neighborhood, from the length of the grass to the color of the lights. She felt she must keep power in her hands. The next morning, Ion woke early and stepped outside to clean his driveway. He liked to begin the day with simple tasks. As he swept the ground, Myra walked toward him again. She pointed at a small leaf near his fence and said he should remove it. Ion picked it up without complaint. Then she pointed at a tiny paint mark near the gate and said it looked messy. Ion nodded and said he would fix it later. He stayed polite, but Myra was not satisfied. She said she hoped he understood the importance of keeping the neighborhood perfect. She spoke as if she was scolding him. Ion listened quietly and thanked her for the reminder. After she left, Ion stayed still for a moment. He was a calm man, but even he felt slightly confused. He looked at the leaf in his hand and wondered why anyone would worry so much about something so small. He shook off the thought and went back to cleaning. During the next few days, Mira kept finding small things to complain about. She said his porch light was too strong. Then she said his trash bin was too close to the road. Later she said his mailbox was tilted, even though it was not. Ion checked everything she mentioned. Most of it was perfectly fine. Neighbors noticed all this. Some of them whispered to each other that Myra had found a new target. They felt bad for Ion but were afraid to interfere. They knew Mira did not like being corrected. Every time Mira came to complain, Ion stayed calm. He never raised his voice. He always answered politely. This calmness started to bother Mira. She wanted to see him lose patience. She felt more frustrated each day because he stayed so steady. One evening, when Ion returned home from work, he carried a box of books in his hand. Myra saw him from her window. She walked fast across the street and said the box looked too big to carry alone. She asked if he had permission to bring large items after dark. Ion looked at her with surprise. He told her he did not know about such a rule. Myra said she would check her documents and walked away in a dramatic manner. Ion placed the box inside and laughed quietly. He knew some rules were important, but he also knew some people enjoyed creating problems that did not exist that night. Ion sat on his porch sipping tea. The street was quiet. The houses stood still under the moonlight. Birds were settling in the trees. Ion enjoyed moments like this after long hours of duty. He closed his eyes and let the calm breeze wash away the stress of the day. Across the street, Myra watched him again. She felt irritated that he appeared so relaxed. She wanted him to feel pressure. She wanted him to follow every instruction she gave. She remembered how the neighbors had supported him during the small conversations earlier. This made her feel threatened. She could not understand why people liked him. So fast, she tapped her fingers on the window frame and whispered that she would not let him take her position of control. She needed to find a way to show the neighborhood who was in charge. Ayan had no idea of the thoughts running through her mind. He simply finished his tea and went inside to rest. But the coming days would not be simple at all. The quiet street was slowly moving toward a strange problem that Ayan did not expect. Myra began planning something. She wanted to teach him a lesson. She wanted to create a scene that showed she was the guardian of the street. She did not think about the result. She only wanted power. Ayan slept peacefully that night. He did not know someone was preparing trouble. He believed the neighborhood was calm and kind. He had no reason to expect anything strange. The peaceful street that looked so perfect on the outside was about to face tension that would change everything. The next morning, Ayan woke early as usual. The sun had barely risen, and the air was cool and quiet. He stepped outside and noticed the dew on the grass sparkling under the soft light. He stretched and took a deep breath, enjoying the calm before starting his day. He started by sweeping the driveway. His broom moved slowly across the concrete, gathering tiny leaves and dust. He liked the rhythm of simple work. It helped him think and relax. Just as he was finishing, Mira appeared from her house. She walked with sharp steps, holding a folder in her hands. Her face showed determination. "Good morning," Ayan said politely. "Good morning," Myra replied, her voice firm. "I noticed some things I think need fixing immediately." She pointed to a small crack near the driveway. "This must be repaired. It is a hazard." Ayan looked carefully. The crack was tiny and harmless. "I will check it and fix it if necessary," he said calmly. Mira frowned slightly as though his calmness annoyed her. She wanted him to feel tension, to react, to argue. For the next hour, Mira stayed in his yard, pointing out small imperfections. She said his mailbox was not straight, his flowers were too close to the fence, and his porch light was too bright. Ayan listened quietly, nodded, and promised to correct anything she mentioned. He never raised his voice or showed irritation. This behavior made Myra even more frustrated. After Myra left, Ayan took a short break. He watered the plants near the porch and checked that everything was clean and in order. He enjoyed small tasks like this because they gave him a sense of peace. He believed rules were important, but he also believed kindness and calmness mattered more than constant criticism. The following days were similar. Mira kept finding tiny issues. She would stop by unexpectedly and look at the trash cans, the color of the door, the length of the grass, and even the position of the welcome mat. She wanted to control every detail. Neighbors began noticing Mira's behavior. Some whispered quietly among themselves. They liked Ayan because he was polite, helpful, and calm. They had noticed how Mira often exaggerated small problems. Some feared confrontation, but they silently admired how Ayan stayed composed. One afternoon, Ayan decided to clean the garage. He found old boxes and tools, dusted everything, and organized the shelves. Mira noticed him through her window. She walked toward his house again. Her steps were firm, and her face showed annoyance. "Hello," she said. "I hope you are following the rules for garage organization. It is important to keep the neighborhood clean and safe." Ayan smiled politely. "I understand. I like to keep everything in order." Mira nodded slowly, but her eyes were sharp. She said she would come back later to check if everything was perfect. Ayan simply thanked her and continued his work. A few days later, Myra noticed a small issue with Ayan's car. It was parked slightly close to the sidewalk, though it did not block anything. She came walking and pointed at it. "This car must be moved. It is too close to the street," she said. Ayan replied calmly. "Thank you for letting me know. I will adjust it." He moved the car a few inches away. Myra seemed satisfied for a moment but quickly found another reason to comment. She mentioned a leaf that had fallen from a tree into the yard. Inside, Ayan remained calm. He felt that small mistakes were normal and did not deserve anger. He believed people should correct problems with patience, not force. This calm attitude made Myra feel even more frustrated. She expected him to argue, to become defensive, or to feel stressed. None of this happened. One evening, Mira decided to call an HOA meeting. She wanted to gather people to discuss what she called violations in Ayan's home. Many neighbors attended. Some were curious, others were wary. Mira began listing small issues she had noticed over the past days. She spoke in a firm tone, trying to make Ayan look careless. Ayan listened quietly. He took notes and nodded politely. He explained that all the points she mentioned were either fixed or harmless. The neighbors noticed his calmness and sense of fairness. Some of them spoke up, saying Ayan was respectful and his home was well maintained. Myra's face changed slightly. She had expected everyone to support her. Instead, some neighbors clearly respected Ayan. Her confidence began to weaken. She tried to continue her speech, but her words sounded harsher than before. After the meeting, Myra returned home feeling frustrated. She slammed the door softly. She could not understand why people liked Ayan so quickly. She had always believed that control and authority gave respect, but this time, it seemed wrong. Meanwhile, Ayan returned home calmly. He made a cup of tea and sat on his porch, enjoying the evening. He listened to the birds, watched the sunset, and felt thankful for peace. He had no idea that Mira was planning something bigger. The next morning, Mira watched Ion from her window. She noticed him leaving for work in his uniform. This was not the first time she had seen him in uniform, but today, she felt a new sense of challenge. She wanted to test him. She wanted to make him feel uncomfortable and show the neighborhood that she had control. She walked across the street and approached his yard. "Good morning," she said sharply. "I need to check some things before you go to work." Ion looked at her calmly. "Good morning. What would you like me to check?" She pointed at his mailbox, the driveway, and the small flower bed near the fence. "These must follow the neighborhood rules. Please make sure everything is perfect." Ion nodded and smiled. "I will take care of it." Myra noticed that he did not show any irritation or anger. She wanted to see a reaction, but he stayed composed. Her plan to control him seemed to fail. She walked back home with a frown. During the next few days, Mira tried other tactics. She wrote small letters with complaints, delivered them to Ion's mailbox, and even asked neighbors to watch him. But Ion continued to stay calm. He corrected small issues politely and ignored exaggerated complaints. His peaceful attitude made the neighbors notice that Myra's actions were unnecessary. One evening, as Ion prepared dinner, he heard a knock on the door. It was Mira again. She pointed at a small object near the porch. "This must be removed immediately," she said. Ayan opened the door with a polite smile. "Thank you for letting me know. I will move it." He moved the object carefully and returned inside. Mira watched silently. She wanted more confrontation, but it never came. Ion's calmness made her feel powerless. That night, Mira stayed awake, thinking about the next plan. She wanted to show authority. She wanted to teach Ion a lesson, but she had no idea how he would react. Ion slept peacefully, unaware of the growing tension. The street seemed quiet, but under the surface a small storm was forming. Myra had plans, and Ion's calm life was about to be tested. The small problems Myra created had grown bigger in her mind. She wanted to make Ion feel pressure, but he only responded with patience. This difference between control and calmness was about to lead to a situation neither of them expected. The quiet street, which seemed ordinary and peaceful, was slowly moving toward a strange event that would change the neighborhood. Ion would soon face a challenge unlike any he had faced before, and Myra would discover that control is not always as powerful as it seems. It was a quiet night in the neighborhood. The streetlights cast soft circles of light on the pavement. Most houses were dark, and the air was still. Ion sat inside his living room, reading a small book. He enjoyed these calm nights. He drank tea slowly and listened to the soft hum of the refrigerator. Outside, the trees swayed gently in the breeze. Across the street, Mira watched his house from her window. She had been restless all evening. Her plan was forming in her mind. She believed Ion was too calm and polite, and she wanted to find a way to challenge him. Her small complaints had not worked. She wanted something stronger. She picked up her phone and stared at it for a moment. Then she dialed the emergency number. Her voice was steady but sharp as she spoke. "Hello, I need to report a disturbance. I think there is a dangerous situation at the house across the street. I heard yelling and loud breaking sounds." The person on the other end of the line asked for details. Myra described the street and the house. She added small details that made the situation sound urgent. She wanted someone to respond quickly. She imagined the police rushing in and her standing nearby, showing she had acted responsibly. After the call, Myra grabbed her jacket and went outside. She stood in front of Ion's house and pretended to be worried. She looked at the windows and walked slowly around the yard. She whispered to herself that she would soon prove her point. Meanwhile, Ion was unaware of the situation. He finished his tea and went to check the mail. When he stepped outside, the street was still quiet. The moonlight made the leaves look silver. He noticed nothing unusual and returned inside. Minutes later, flashing lights appeared at the end of the street. Red and blue lights reflected on the windows of the houses. Ion's heart beat calmly but steadily. He was trained for emergencies, but this time, he had not expected one at home. Police cars stopped in front of his house. Officers stepped out quickly, speaking into their radios. Ion opened the door just as the first officer reached the porch. "Are you the owner?" one officer asked, clearly worried. Ion nodded. "Yes, I am." "Is everything okay?" The officer explained that they received a call reporting loud noises and possible danger. Ion's calm mind processed the information quickly. He realized something was wrong. No noises had come from his house, and nothing had been broken. He showed his badge. "I am a police officer. Nothing here is wrong. I have been at home all evening." The officers paused, surprised to see a fellow officer at the door. They lowered their voices and checked the area around the house. Ion stepped aside and invited them to look. Myra stood across the street. She had been watching with a proud expression, but as she saw Ion in uniform and speaking with the officers, her confidence faltered. Her plan was not going as she had imagined. The officers walked around the yard and house. Everything was in order. The mailbox was upright, the driveway clean, and the windows unbroken. Ion's calm presence reassured them that there was no real danger. One officer asked Myra to explain the situation. Myra stepped forward, trying to act worried. She said she heard noises and feared something serious was happening. The officer's face showed doubt. He asked her to be specific, and Myra repeated her story. Her voice wavered slightly as she noticed the officers looking closely at her. Ion remained calm. He explained that he had been home all evening, working quietly, reading and enjoying his time. He said he did not understand why anyone would report a false emergency. The officers looked at Myra carefully. Her story had inconsistencies. She hesitated when asked questions. Her confident expression began to fade. The officers spoke quietly among themselves, checking the street and the house. Ayan suggested they speak with the neighbors. A few neighbors came outside. They confirmed that everything had been peaceful and quiet. They said they had not heard anything unusual. The officer talking to Myra grew serious. He said that making false emergency calls was dangerous and could have serious consequences. Myra's face turned pale. She said she only wanted to make sure the neighborhood was safe. The officer did not believe her explanation. Ion stayed calm the entire time. He spoke politely to the officers and to Myra. His calmness and honesty impressed the neighbors. They realized that Myra's actions had been unnecessary and that Ion had done nothing wrong. After a few minutes, the officers thanked Ion for his cooperation. They advised Myra to be careful with future emergency calls. They reminded her that false reports could put others at risk and waste valuable resources. Myra walked back to her house quietly. Her plan had failed completely. She had tried to create tension and show authority, but her actions were exposed. She understood that Ion's calm and respectful behavior had protected him. Ion returned inside. He closed the door, made a fresh cup of tea, and sat on his couch. He listened to the soft ticking of the clock and took a deep breath. He felt relief but also understood that this situation might not be the last. Myra had shown that she was willing to act without reason, and he knew he would need patience in the coming days. Across the street, Myra looked out her window again. She felt embarrassed and frustrated. Her neighbors had witnessed the event, and some had quietly spoken to Ion about how unfair Myra's actions were. She felt powerless for the first time in a long while. Ion, on the other hand, remained calm. He knew that peace came from patience, not from power or authority. He did not need to speak loudly or argue to prove himself. His quiet actions and respect for rules were already visible to everyone. That night, Ion sat on his porch for a while. The stars were bright, and the cool wind brushed against his face. He felt thankful for his calmness and his training, which had helped him stay safe and composed. The neighborhood seemed peaceful again. Myra stayed inside her house, thinking about what had happened. She realized that trying to force control over others could lead to mistakes. She had tried to create a scene to show authority, but it backfired. She would need to think carefully before acting again. The quiet street returned to normal, but the tension of the night left a mark. Neighbors quietly talked about the strange events. Many felt relieved that everything was fine, and some admired Ion for staying calm and polite under pressure. Ion knew that Myra's actions were not personal. She only wanted control. He decided to continue living peacefully, following the rules, and showing respect. He understood that patience and kindness could solve many problems without conflict. The night ended quietly. The stars shone, the wind moved gently, and Ion finally rested. He did not need to react to false complaints or threats. His calmness was his strength. The neighborhood was safe, at least for now. But Myra was still watching. She was thinking about what to do next. Ion knew that small storms could come from unexpected places. He prepared himself with calm, patience, and careful observation. He understood that life in the neighborhood was not just about rules and order. It was also about respect, honesty, and careful action. The events of the night had taught Myra an important lesson, though she had not fully accepted it yet. Ion had shown that calmness, honesty, and respect could protect him better than force or intimidation. As he sat inside, drinking tea and listening to the quiet hum of the night, Ion felt ready. He knew that challenges might come again, but he also knew that his calm mind and steady approach would guide him through any situation. The quiet neighborhood seemed calm, but the small storm had changed it forever. Myra had tried to create tension, but Ion had turned it into a lesson for everyone. The street would remember that night for a long time, and Ion's calmness would remain an example for all. The morning after the fake 911 call, the neighborhood felt unusually quiet. The air was crisp and fresh. Birds chirped softly in the trees, and the sun shone on the neat rows of houses. Ion stepped outside to check his yard. He smiled at the calm morning. He liked starting the day with small tasks. He watered his plants, checked the driveway, and swept the porch. Everything looked perfect, just as he preferred. Across the street, Myra watched from her window. She had spent the night thinking about the events of the previous evening. Her plan had completely failed. Instead of showing power, she had only exposed herself. She felt embarrassed but also angry. She could not believe that Ion had remained calm while the police were outside his house. She wanted to prove that she was in charge, but she had learned a hard lesson. Determined, Myra went out again. She wanted to explain herself, but also to insist that the situation was serious. She walked toward Ion's house with her folder in hand. Her steps were firm, and her face showed tension. Ion greeted her politely. "Good morning," he said. "I hope you are doing well today." Myra forced a small smile. Good morning. I wanted to talk about last night. I thought something dangerous was happening. Ayan nodded calmly. I understand. I appreciate your concern. But nothing was wrong, and I was home the whole time. Myra looked away for a moment. She knew that lying to the police was a serious mistake. She had acted without thinking, and now she had to face the consequences. Neighbors had started gathering quietly. Some had seen the police cars and were curious. They noticed Myra approaching and whispered among themselves. Many were beginning to understand that Myra's actions were not reasonable. One of the officers from the previous night arrived. He wanted to clarify the situation and speak to Myra. He asked her to step aside for a moment. Myra followed, trying to remain composed. The officer spoke quietly but firmly. We need to understand why a false emergency call was made. This is a serious matter. It could have caused danger to others and wasted important resources. Myra hesitated. She tried to explain, I only wanted to keep the neighborhood safe. I thought there was danger. The officer raised an eyebrow. You called for a dangerous situation that did not exist. You did not check first. You created a problem for no reason. This is not how safety works. Ayan watched quietly, staying calm. He did not need to speak. The truth was clear to everyone watching. Myra had overreacted, and her story had no evidence. The officer asked neighbors if they had seen anything unusual. Several neighbors spoke up. They said the street was quiet and peaceful. No loud noises, no disturbances, no danger. Everything was normal. Just as Ayan had said. Myra tried to argue, but each time she spoke, someone contradicted her story. Her confidence began to disappear. She looked around and realized that many people were quietly watching her and understanding the truth. Ayan stepped forward and spoke. I do not want conflict. I only want peace in the neighborhood. I follow the rules, and I respect the community. I hope this situation reminds everyone to act calmly and responsibly. His words were calm, honest, and clear. Neighbors nodded quietly, impressed by his composure. They had seen Myra act in ways that caused tension, and now they understood the difference between patience and unnecessary control. The officer looked at Myra again. False calls like this are dangerous. They can put lives at risk. You need to understand the seriousness of your actions. Myra lowered her head. She realized she had acted out of anger and a desire for control. She had not thought about the consequences. She had tried to force authority, but the truth had come out. The officer took notes and explained that the report would be documented. Myra listened silently, feeling embarrassed. She had wanted to be seen as powerful, but she had only exposed herself to criticism and concern. After the officer left, Myra returned to her home. She closed the door and sat quietly. She reflected on the events and realized she had made serious mistakes. Control alone did not earn respect. Honesty, patience, and calmness mattered more. Meanwhile, Ayan continued his morning routine. He watered the plants again, swept the porch, and organized small details in his home. He felt relief that the situation was resolved. He understood that Myra might act again, but he had learned that staying calm and honest protected him better than anger or confrontation. Neighbors began to greet Ayan with soft smiles and kind words. Some came to speak privately. We are sorry that Myra created trouble for you, they said. We understand you did nothing wrong. Ayan nodded politely. Thank you. I hope everyone can focus on peace and respect. That is the most important thing. The neighborhood slowly returned to its normal rhythm. Children played quietly. Cars moved gently down the street, and the air felt calm and safe. Myra stayed inside her house for a long time, thinking about the consequences of her actions. She realized she had to change if she wanted to be respected. Later, an HOA meeting was scheduled to discuss the events. Myra attended, looking tense and nervous. Ayan arrived calmly, prepared to speak only if necessary. The neighbors spoke first. They described Myra's actions and explained how her false call had caused unnecessary tension. Many supported Ayan, praising his calmness, respect, and honesty. Myra tried to defend herself, saying she only wanted safety. However, the neighbors clearly understood the difference between her actions and Ayan's calm responsibility. Her attempts to justify herself did not convince anyone. The HOA decided that Myra's behavior was not acceptable. They warned her about future actions and suggested she reflect on how she treated neighbors. They also recognized that Ayan had followed rules and handled the situation respectfully. Myra left the meeting feeling quiet and thoughtful. For the first time, she realized that control alone could not command respect. She understood that patience, honesty, and calmness were more powerful than authority or force. Ayan returned home and prepared tea. He sat on the porch listening to the soft hum of the evening. The wind moved gently through the trees and the street was calm. He felt peace knowing that the truth had come out. The neighborhood had learned an important lesson. False actions could create problems, but honesty and patience could solve them. Myra had learned that controlling others without reason led only to embarrassment and tension. Ayan had shown that calm, respectful behavior earned real respect from everyone. That night fell. Ayan sat quietly thinking about the events. He knew Myra might act again, but he also knew that his calm approach and careful actions would guide him through any challenge. The quiet street was safe again, and the lesson had been learned by all. The events of the night and morning had revealed the truth. Mira's desire for control had been exposed, and Ion's calm, honest behavior had protected him. The neighborhood now understood the importance of patience, honesty, and respect. Ion sipped his tea and watched the stars appear. He felt grateful for the peace he had fought to maintain. Mira stayed inside, reflecting on her actions and realizing that change was necessary if she wanted to be respected in the future. The quiet street had experienced tension, but it had also learned a valuable lesson. Truth, patience, and calmness had won over unnecessary control and false actions. Ion's calm mind and steady heart had not only protected him but had also set an example for the neighborhood. The story of that night and morning would remain in the minds of the neighbors. It showed that honesty and calmness were stronger than false authority and unnecessary control. Ion had faced a challenge, stayed composed, and allowed the truth to reveal itself naturally. The neighborhood slowly returned to normal life. People felt safer and more aware. Myra began to understand that respect could not be forced. Ion continued his peaceful life, maintaining his home and his calm presence. The quiet street was once again filled with harmony and trust, and Ion, sitting on his porch with a soft breeze around him, knew that calmness, honesty, and patience were always stronger than tension, control, or false actions. The morning after the HOA meeting was calm and bright. The sun rose slowly, casting golden light on the neat houses of the neighborhood. Birds sang from the trees, and the air felt fresh. Ion stepped outside his front door and looked around. His yard was tidy, the flowers blooming, and the driveway clean. He felt a quiet sense of satisfaction. Life had returned to normal after the tense events of the previous days. Across the street, Myra sat quietly inside her house. She had spent the night thinking about everything that had happened. For the first time, she realized how her actions had affected others. Calling the police without reason, creating unnecessary complaints, and trying to control Ion had brought embarrassment and tension. She understood that authority alone did not earn respect. Respect was earned through honesty, kindness, and calm behavior. Ion began his morning routine. He watered the small plants near the porch, checked the mailbox, and swept the driveway once more. He liked to start the day with simple tasks. Neighbors walked past, nodding politely. Some stopped to speak with him. "We are happy that everything is calm again," one neighbor said. "You handled everything with patience and respect. We admire your calmness." Ion smiled. "Thank you. I only want peace in our neighborhood. I hope we can all live respectfully together." The neighbors continued their morning walks, chatting quietly. Children played in the yards, and everyone felt more relaxed. Ion noticed Myra at her window, observing silently. He did not feel anger or revenge. He only wished that she would learn the value of calmness and honesty. Later, a group of neighbors called for another HOA meeting. This time, it was to address Myra's behavior and the events of the past week. Everyone attended. Some were curious, some were cautious, but all wanted clarity and fairness. Myra entered the meeting quietly. She looked nervous and tense. Her confident expression from before had faded. Ion arrived calmly. He took a seat and waited silently, ready to speak if needed. The HOA president began the meeting. "We are here to discuss recent events involving false complaints and unnecessary actions in our neighborhood. We will listen to all sides and make decisions based on fairness and facts." Neighbors spoke first. They described Myra's repeated complaints, the false 911 call, and how Ion had handled everything calmly and politely. Many praised Ion's behavior, noting how he maintained peace without conflict. Myra attempted to explain her actions. She said she only wanted to ensure safety. However, her voice trembled slightly, and her story did not match the facts. The neighbors noticed this. They understood that her concern for control had caused more problems than safety. Ion remained calm. He did not interrupt Myra. He only spoke when asked. "I only want to live peacefully and follow the neighborhood rules. I respect the community, and I hope everyone can focus on harmony and cooperation." The HOA members discussed Myra's actions privately. They reviewed the events, including the false 911 call and repeated unnecessary complaints. They concluded that Myra had acted inappropriately. They decided she needed a warning and guidance to prevent future incidents. They also made it clear that false complaints and control without reason were not acceptable. When Myra returned to the group, the president spoke. "Your actions have caused tension in the neighborhood. You must reflect on your behavior and understand that respect cannot be forced. From now on, any unnecessary complaints or false reports will not be tolerated." Myra nodded silently. She realized that her reputation had suffered, but she also understood the lesson. Control without patience and kindness was not true authority. The neighbors then turned to Ion. They praised him for his calm and respectful handling of the situation. His composure, honesty, and patience had set an example for everyone. After the meeting, the neighborhood felt lighter. People returned to their homes with a sense of relief. Ion walked back to his house and began small chores. He checked the plants, watered the flowers, and cleaned the porch. Everything was in order. Myra stayed inside her house for a long time. She reflected on her actions. For the first time, she considered how patience, calmness, and honesty could earn real respect. She realized that fear and control did not help anyone. Later in the day, Ion stepped onto his porch with a cup of tea. He listened to the soft sounds of the neighborhood. The wind rustled the leaves, and children played quietly nearby. He felt peace knowing that truth and patience had won over false authority and tension. Some neighbors stopped by to greet him. "We are glad you live here," one neighbor said. "You showed us that calmness and respect are stronger than anger or control." Ion smiled. "Thank you. I hope we can all live peacefully together. Respect and patience make life better for everyone." Myra watched quietly from her window. She felt a mix of embarrassment and understanding. She had learned a valuable lesson. Authority and control alone were not enough. Respect required honesty, calmness, and consideration for others. Over the next few days, the neighborhood slowly returned to normal. Children played in the yards, neighbors chatted while walking, and the air was filled with calm energy. Myra began to behave more cautiously. She followed the rules without unnecessary complaints and observed the neighborhood without judgment. Ion continued his routine. He maintained his home, helped neighbors when needed, and stayed calm in every situation. His actions showed that kindness and patience were stronger than anger and control. One afternoon, Myra approached Ion. She spoke softly. "I want to apologize for the trouble I caused. I understand that I acted wrongly. I hope we can move forward peacefully." Ion nodded politely. "Thank you. I accept your apology. I hope we can all focus on respect and harmony from now on." Myra smiled faintly. She had learned that respect came from actions, not force. Ion's calmness had taught her a lesson she would not forget. Neighbors noticed the change. Myra no longer created unnecessary tension, and the street felt peaceful again. Ion continued his life quietly, enjoying simple routines and the harmony of the neighborhood. Evenings were calm. Ion would sit on his porch, drink tea, and watch the sunset. The birds returned, the wind blew gently, and the street remained safe. He knew that challenges could appear, but he also knew that honesty, patience, and calm behavior were stronger than any conflict. Myra observed quietly. She learned that kindness and calmness earned respect more than force or authority. She began to behave more responsibly, following rules without unnecessary criticism. The neighborhood had changed for the better. Residents felt safer, happier, and more connected. Ion's calm and respectful approach had shown everyone that patience and honesty were the keys to harmony. As the sun set, Ion finished his tea and stood on his porch. The street looked peaceful. The events of the past days had left a mark, but the neighborhood had learned a valuable lesson. Calmness, honesty, and respect were stronger than unnecessary control and false actions. Ion smiled quietly. He had faced tension, stayed composed, and allowed the truth to come forward naturally. His calmness had protected him and set an example for everyone. The neighborhood was safe again, and everyone had learned the importance of patience, honesty, and respect. Myra, sitting across the street, reflected on her actions. She realized that she had been wrong, and she vowed to behave more responsibly. She understood that real respect could not be forced. Ion returned to his small routines. He watered the plants, organized his porch, and prepared dinner calmly. The neighborhood remained peaceful. The lesson had been learned. The quiet street had witnessed tension, conflict, and a test of patience. But in the end, calmness, honesty, and respect had triumphed. Ion's actions had restored peace and shown everyone the value of living calmly and responsibly. The neighborhood looked brighter, calmer, and safer. Children played freely. Neighbors spoke kindly, and the air was filled with harmony. Ion knew that life would continue with challenges, but he was ready to face them with patience and calmness. The lesson had been learned. False actions and control without reason only brought tension. Honesty, patience, and respectful behavior created peace and understanding. Ion's calm presence had reminded everyone that true strength came from character, not authority. And as the stars appeared in the night sky, the quiet neighborhood rested safely, knowing that calmness and respect would always guide them toward harmony.